Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to another episode of Ton Real Talk. This is episode 6, and I am Angela Brazington, leading Ton US Hub. And this show is where we bring together builders, investors, and innovators to talk about technologies shaping the future of decentralized infrastructure. Today's episode is another exciting one because we're diving into a topic that sits right at the intersection of AI, blockchain, and privacy. We are going to talk about confidential compute networks, what they are, why they matter, and how they're enabling developers to build powerful applications without sacrificing security or data ownership. Then later in the show, we'll bring in a good friend, Brittany Kaiser from AlphaTon Capital, to talk about AI and Cocoon and how confidential compute is becoming a key piece of the decentralized AI stack. So before we dive in, and because it ties in so well, I do want to mention that we've just kicked off our AI Agent Hackathon, a global 2-week build challenge focusing on establishing Ton as the settlement layer for AI agent applications. Folks are building across 2 tracks, one focused on agent infrastructure, like agentic wallets and programmable economic interactions, and another focused on user-facing AI agents inside of Telegram, things like trading assistants, payment bots, and automation tools. It's a really exciting moment because since AI agents launched on Telegram, Botfather usage has grown from 3.5 million to over 7 million monthly users, which is massive. And I think that shows, how quickly this space is evolving. So with that, let's start with the foundation. Joining us first are 2 people working directly in the space. We have Matthew McCarthy from Atlantic AI and JM Hands from Farm GPU. Both are working on infrastructure that helps make confidential compute and decentralized AI possible. So guys, why don't you come on up and welcome to Ton Real Talk. Give us a little update and introduce yourselves.
Yeah, morning, folks. John Michael Hands, CEO of Farm GPU. We're a full stack neocloud based out of Northern California. So we have AI GPU compute for developers and enterprises and startups, and our confidential computing platform is one of our latest products. And it's been an exciting couple months, and obviously in AI land.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Matt here. Good morning to you guys. It's evening here in Thailand. I'm the CEO of Atlantic AI. We are an AI company out of Canada that we work on building confidential compute is one of our products. And one of our partners is AlphaTon, and of course, Farm GPU, JM Hands. Pleasure to be on the show today.
Thank you. All right, so let's start at the beginning. When people hear terms like confidential compute or confidential compute networks, it can sound a little bit abstract. So Matthew, could you explain in simple terms what confidential compute actually means and why it's becoming such an important piece of the decentralized infra stack?
Yeah, so confidential compute is pretty much where you have privacy with your LLM conversations. So we, as the host, Atlantic AI, we can't see any of your data, which is pretty much the opposite of the main frontier model companies, the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, the Gemini, the Perplexity. So yeah, all those companies, they use your user data for training, use it for reinforcement learning. So confidential compute is where all of your chat sessions stay private from us, the host. And so yeah, we can't see any of your data and any of your conversations or intimate details. And there's a cryptographic guarantee that basically assures your privacy. So yeah, that's on a high level. That's what it is.
Very good. So one of the big themes we keep hearing across the industry is that AI is becoming incredibly powerful, but it's also becoming incredibly centralized. So where does confidential compute fit into that conversation? JM, from your perspective, how does confidential compute help move us toward a more decentralized AI ecosystem?
Yeah, one of the interesting arcs of this AI run up has been the emergence of neoclouds, right? If you were to ask people 5 years ago, like, oh, there's just going to be this new class of cloud providers that come completely disrupt Microsoft and Amazon and Google, they'd be like, you're out of your mind. What are you talking about? And as Matthew was saying, like when you're putting data on a public cloud, you're like intrinsically trusting that cloud provider, like with your data. And they're like, hey, we're totally not going to lose it, right? That's durability of data. Like when you put your data on here, it's going to be back there. It's going to be there when you come back. That's durability. And then privacy, like, hey, we're totally not going to look at your data. And a lot of people don't know that on these like entry level $20 plans for ChatGPT and such, like they absolutely will train on your data. They absolutely can see all your chats. And they even say in the terms of service. Now, if you pay for like the special enterprise accounts and they're like, okay, well, that's SOC 2 and we don't train on all that data and that's great. But you're just trusting them, right? It's like between you and Chat, you and OpenAI or you and, you and Claude, right? Like they're like, Anthropic's totally not going to like steal our data, right? So this idea of there's always been this trust model between, when you're storing data in the cloud that you're trusting that provider. Well, with confidential computing, now you can do that on anybody's system and make sure that, and you can ensure cryptographically that they can't read your data. So now this enables decentralized computing, in this way where you don't have to just totally trust the cloud vendor or this random guy that like they're not going to look at your data. They like cryptographically, you can attest that they can't do that.
That's awesome. Brittany and I were actually talking about this a lot when we were together in Miami, and it really opens my eyes a lot to how much they really can do with these other AIs that everybody is using on the reg. So really important stuff here. And I think that everybody needs to tune in and listen to what's going on with confidential compute. So for the developers watching today, especially those building in TON ecosystem, what new possibilities does confidential compute unlock? Like what kind of applications become possible that weren't actually feasible before?
I know there's been an emergent class of people running different LLMs that are not necessarily this like the frontier models that may have different use cases or maybe unlocked or jailbroken or something like that. But at the core, one of the things is like there's some of these LLM services in the crypto world that are trying to provide just privacy, right? Like how making sure you're not using one of these centralized clouds. So I think this is probably one of the first use cases for developers to say, the whole idea of this confidential computing is that we're using TDX. We'll talk about all the technology here in a little bit, but basically it's in encrypted VMs, and you can pass the GPUs through to these encrypted VMs, and you can, as a cloud provider, I can't snoop on the data that's being run in that VM. So it definitely enables people to run, again, more private workloads or put up sensitive data. Or I know a lot of the agentic workloads where we're starting to build agents for different things like marketing and fun stuff running around. But like when you have these agents that are having access to certain data sets, private data sets, you're going to want an agent that like knows everything about you and like can give you great recommendations for restaurants. Or hey, I'm traveling to here. Like, do you want that in a public cloud? Maybe not, right? Do you want it local to your machine? Maybe, but that will be limited capability for the agent. So this confidential computing kind of provides the best of both worlds, where you can put it somewhere where there's powerful and beefy GPUs, like we're going to be using B200s, the latest and greatest Blackwell from NVIDIA. But you have that guarantee that it's decentralized and secure.
Right. Right. So something Brittany. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, also it's shocking is JM was talking about a lot of these companies with a $20 plan. They're saying it, but they're also saying that they're going to take your intellectual property. That was a new I think OpenAI released this about a month ago, that they now have, they basically declared, hey, we now have ownership over intellectual property that's developed with our chat interface, right? So I think for a developer, let's say you're doing a bot for trading, and you want to, have trading strategies and work with an LLM, certainly you don't want, OpenAI, claiming IP on your trading strategies. So I think that is like one really good example. I think for the Telegram ecosystem is simply just a trading bot. You don't want to reveal get front run basically by some lab that's funded by OpenAI. So yeah.
Yeah, really good point. So something that I was just thinking about, Brittany and AlphaTon actually talk about this a lot, is the need for sovereign AI infrastructure, meaning infra that isn't controlled by a handful of centralized providers. Where do confidential compute networks fit into that vision? And are we looking at a future where compute itself becomes a decentralized resource?
Yeah, it's I know I've been involved in blockchain and crypto projects for a long time in the decentralized stuff, and hello, Brittany. Yeah, and one of the ideas for decentralized computing, was always this privacy thing, and not, just like, oh, we don't have to be at the mercy of the hyperscalers to, delete my workload if, and it's pretty serious, right? If say for instance you had like 10 petabytes of training data, and they just, oh, well, we flagged something because you had some accidental thing in that data set that they flagged, and now they've like just deleted your key and locked you out of that access. I spent a lot of time in this decentralized storage, right? I was working at Chia for 3 years, and I worked very closely with the Filecoin guys and Storage and all these. In Akash, I had I have one of the guys that used to work at Akash is on my team here. So we've got a lot of ex-crypto guys in decentralized. But the problem with decentralized compute was always quality, right? Like, again, back to why do people go to the cloud providers? Because you know what you're getting. You're paying a tremendous amount of money, compared to other these decentralized services, but they're not going to lose your data. And if you're like putting sensitive data there, it's a pretty serious deal, like that they're not going to just like delete your data and lose it. And so that's one angle, right? Like, which is, how do you solve that problem, which is reliability, availability, uptime, workload efficiency. So there are a bunch of interesting strategies now that didn't exist, right? Because we have AI to orchestrate workloads and LLMs and load balance and do kinds of things that can abstract away the complexity of like, things being not at like a big major hyperscale data center. But I mentioned this emergence of the neoclouds is now it's not just like these hyperscalers or some dude's garage. That was what crypto and decentralized storage meant before. Smaller little data centers, or somebody's desktop system with a GPU in there. That's definitely not what is going on right now. It's very different. It's like smaller data centers, 1 to 5 megawatts, and they aren't hyperscalers, but they're hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're running it very much like like a cloud provider. And these they're making those big gaps in uptime and serviceability and availability and internet speed, and so that gap is now closing very closely. And this confidential computing is kind of like the final dusting on the top of like, nail in the coffin of how do we close that gap and get it over to, to where decentralized compute actually makes sense. And again, it doesn't need to be just decentralized doesn't mean like my desktop here in my office, right? It could mean very different things, like smaller data centers that are regional in other places. So.
Thank you. I'll let you guys chime into that too, but I just first want to welcome Brittany Kaiser to the stage. Welcome, Brittany, CEO of AlphaTon Capital. So happy to have you here with us today. Welcome.
So pleased to be here. Thank you for having me. I'll just do a fast introduction. As Angela said, I'm Brittany Kaiser. I'm the CEO of AlphaTon Capital. We are a Telegram focused and privacy centric, technology focused, NASDAQ listed company, and we deploy all of our data protecting technologies into the Telegram ecosystem. We are also absolutely honored to be one of the GPU launch partners for Cocoon AI, and we're honored to have 2 of our partners on the line as well. We've partnered with Atlantic AI and Farm GPU in order to help scale up the Cocoon AI network, so Telegram can start rolling out AI native features as the first privacy-centric decentralized AI network, which for us is just, the most exciting thing in the world.
It's huge. It's massive. Thank you for that, and welcome. I'm glad you're here with us. So let's get back into the conversation, and I have a lot more questions for you coming up, Brittany. But first, JM, Farm GPU is working on distributed compute infrastructure. Can you tell us a bit about what you're building and how it contributes to the broader confidential compute ecosystem?
Yeah. So making confidential computing work, it was not trivial, right? This is certainly very far stretched from plug and play, and the combination of technologies it's definitely far too advanced for even like some of the best AI and agents and to just crack right out of the gate. You need the first platform and partner we're working with is Intel TDX, and I mentioned this is confidential computing at the trust boundary of the VM. So before they had this thing called SGX, which was like these enclaves, which would be like your app is encrypted, and that kind of made sense for you're a cloud provider and you're running a bunch, you've got these high core count CPUs and you're running little workloads and these apps, and you want these little apps encrypted and these little encrypted memory spaces where, the hyperscaler can't snoop on these workloads. But in the GPU world, like these workloads have shifted, right? Obviously, CPUs are not the stars of the show anymore. GPUs are the stars of the show, and that's where all the capex is going for. This year, because you need GPUs to run AI workloads, of course, right? So this combination of just enabling these trust domain extensions to where we have the trust boundary is the virtual machine, right? So you're basically saying like, okay, I'm running this VM and I have the keys to that, and nobody without those keys can look at the encrypted memory region of what's being ran in that VM. Now, the technology we brought we're the first people to actually make NVIDIA Blackwell B200s work in that Intel TDX with the latest Intel CPUs. I worked at Intel for 10 years, by the way. So I had an email thread with the TDX folks there, and we told them like, yeah, we think we got this stack working. And they're like, wow, like I think the only other guys that have got that working are like Amazon and Alibaba or something. Like, holy, like how did you what? But yeah, it required quite a bit of complexity between this combination of NVIDIA stuff, combination of Intel CPU and these TDX settings and encryptions and stuff. But when you have this whole thing working, in tandem in the tech stack, again, you not just enable this confidential computing workload with CPUs, but with AI, and that unlocks all these things of running inference with LLMs and image generation, and being able to run that stuff without having that guarantee that the cloud provider can't basically look at your data. And they're in confidential computing, you have a thing called attestation, right? Which is like, how do you attest and verify that like they can't do that, right? That's the whole point, is that you have this attestation, and that they don't just like, oh, trust you, we're totally running a confidential compute workload. They can verify cryptographically that you are running it. And that's the beauty.
That is the beauty. It makes me wonder how we ever did it any differently. But because of the challenge that it took you to get into there, I do understand. It's just wild. So Matthew, same question for you. What problem is Atlantic AI solving specifically, and how does confidential compute play a role in enabling what you are building?
Yeah, so I think the biggest problem that we're really solving is scaling out actually confidential compute virtual machines, because I've been looking at SGX. I think first came on the scene with some crypto projects probably in 2018, but now everything's going so AI driven. We're focusing on increasing, basically like getting as many of these nodes online as possible. So we're working hand in hand with NVIDIA and our partners at Supermicro. Supermicro, if for those who don't know, are they're kind of like the Dell for Intel. Provides the chip, and then Dell provides the chassis. Well, for the AI world, that would be NVIDIA providing the GPU, and Supermicro provides the water cooled chassis and everything. So we're working with data centers all over the world, Europe, Asia, America, obviously North America, Canada, US. So yeah, we're trying to get as many of these I'd call them a confidential compute node. So confidential compute nodes online throughout as many geographic areas. So that means that if you're connecting in Sweden and you want to use a confidential compute, you could talk to one of our data centers maybe in Finland. So we're really working on building the geographic footprint, and then working with AlphaTon and of course Farm GPU. Their key partners needed to turn on each one of these regions so that the latency for connecting to these apps in the confidential compute world is as low as possible. So you can play games, you can you can have all your normal all the quality of like a hyperscaler, as JM was talking about, but except having it in a confidential platform. So thanks.
Nice. Very good. All right. So we've talked about the infra layer, confidential compute, distributed compute networks, why they matter. Now I want to zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because infrastructure like this is becoming incredibly important for the next wave of AI applications. And I think it's a perfect moment to bring Brittany back up and talk about all of this. Brittany and AlphaTon has been doing a lot of work exploring the intersection of AI, decentralization, and, as Brittany just said, Cocoon. So welcome back up, Brittany. Come on and say hi, and then let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I've been in the data center business for 15 years. That's been everything from providing large scale, just regular data processing to advanced data science, early AI, large scale Bitcoin mining that I've been doing since 2011 as well, which got me into the crypto industry in the first place. And now that, AI is eating the world and everyone is using it every day, I think it's become the biggest demand center and the largest growing vertical in the world. So the ability to get access to real estate, data center materials, GPUs, networking, and to get those chips online for the millions of companies and government departments and individual developers around the world that have this compute demand has really become the world's largest and fastest growing industry. So us playing in that space is one really exciting because it is kind of a hyper growth industry that has demand from basically everyone. Now, even individuals on a daily basis using AI have a demand for compute power, and that might not be something that you realize that you're creating, but every time you use an AI application, you're paying for compute. Whether you're paying Claude or Chat GPT or some other application, the payment that you're making is baked into actually paying for compute. So we're very focused on actually scaling up compute capacity. And I think to address Cocoon AI specifically, I think what is so brilliant about Pavel's vision is that he wants compute and decentralized compute to be accessible for everyone, but also to be affordable. For privacy to be affordable is something that, I am so in alignment with. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a former big tech whistleblower. I've been working very hard over the past decade on data protection and privacy. And in the past, 5 or 6 years, I've actually had a lot of anxiety over the growth of AI because I've thought, how this infrastructure is hyper scaling and it's getting to the point where everyone can affordably or even for free use AI every day. But it's making the data protection and privacy conversation nearly impossible because everybody's data is getting collected in a more comprehensive way than even social media used to, and no one really has any idea of the implications of that. And so how are we actually going to protect people in the age of AI? And it wasn't until October of last year when Pavel Durov came out at Blockchain Life and made that incredible presentation launching Cocoon AI as the first large-scale privacy-centric AI inference network that I thought, okay, wow, like that's really the answer. It's to make privacy accessible to people. And then when I started working with Atlantic AI and Farm GPU to really figure out how to make Cocoon AI function and how to get GPUs online for Cocoon AI, I realized the complexity of confidential compute and the fact that there were enough technologies to create privacy-centric AI, but they were currently completely inaccessible except for military use. So, our militaries are able to access confidential compute and maybe some, hyperscale, Fortune 100 companies. But in general, the smaller companies that aren't the biggest companies in the world, individuals and even civilian facing government agencies have no access to this type of privacy technology. And that really got me thinking that, wow, what Pavel and Telegram have done by launching a decentralized, ton-based, permissionless, confidential computing network is completely earth-shattering. It's huge. It's something that we want to be a part of immediately. So I think it was an hour after Pavel's announcement that I applied to be a partner and made an announcement to say we were going to invest in Cocoon AI and help hyperscale it. And, we got chosen, and with the help of John Michael and Matthew here, we got started playing with the test net, got our first nodes online at the launch of the network, and for the past couple months have been buying GPUs and starting to get those installed so we can help scale that network so that Telegram really has the ability to provide privacy-centric AI tools to 1 billion people. And that is, the first time that has happened in the entire world where, a whole portion of the planet will have access to privacy-centric AI.
Crucial, necessary. I love how quick acting you were. You said an hour after his announcement. You're like, yes, this needs to be done. I love it. So if the idea behind Cocoon is creating a kind of protected environment for AI computation, how does confidential compute enable something like that?
Well, it's really the idea that, you can run, the types of AI programs that you're used to using every day, but you're able to execute them in a vertical silo where your data never leaves. So the data that you're putting in, the intelligence that you're getting out, all of that is only for you. It doesn't go to the owners of the LLMs. It doesn't go to third-party databases. When you use regular AI every day, it's sometimes, that data is being shared with millions of databases around the world, not just the owner of that platform. And that can be used in any way, shape, or form because the terms and conditions you signed mean that data is no longer yours. So I think really having the ability to truly own all of your data because no one else has access to it, and you can prove that with mathematical proofs that it's impossible for anyone to get access to your information is, revolutionary.
Yeah, it really is. So right now, AI today, it's mostly controlled by large centralized companies, as we talked about. Do you see confidential compute and decentralized infrastructure as a path toward a more open AI ecosystem?
So, there's two different ways to look at this. One, I think what is a more open AI ecosystem, the opposite of open AI, which they're falsely named. An open AI ecosystem means to me that people around the world can afford safe use of AI. And for me, I think that is very, very, very exciting. And that's huge. There's another way to look at it, which is that, with confidential computing, that, you know, a lot of people who and companies and government organizations that have been slow to implement AI now can go full speed ahead because they were afraid of hooking some of these systems up to their databases. They were afraid to give access to AI agents to all of their, personal information. But if you know that all of that continues to be yours, then you can feel not just feel safe, but know that you are safe while using these applications. And I think we're going to see a lot of incredible innovation around the world with speed to execution because they're able to, touch these new programs and tools where they've, been hesitant to do so up till now.
Yeah, that's going to change the game dramatically. Like I think about how much I have been able to move faster, get smarter, act quicker with using AI on a personal level. So thinking about it from that point of view, and that is going to drastically change innovation around the world. And I'm excited for that. I think that's really a good thing. And it's going to be safe, which will allow them to do it. So, Brittany, from an investor perspective, what kinds of projects in this space are you most excited about right now? What really gets you going?
I mean, for me, especially because I'm so focused on the Telegram ecosystem and in general, just, have my pulse on the hottest trends, is that AI agents are going to be the most exciting use case of confidential computing right now, because I think agents are what everyone is trying to figure out how to use and how to do correctly, and every individual and every organization is going to have so many AI agents working for them and doing things for them, now and into the future, that being able to safely hook that up to all of your systems, all your information, your emails, your apps, and be able to start basically having, an automated assistant for all of the things that used to take you a really long time to do. And that all of that information stays with you and will never be shared with third parties and leave you vulnerable. I mean, that's just huge. And most AI agents are using Telegram. I mean, Telegram is the real OS for for AI agents at this point. So having Telegram as the operating system and a native use of a confidential computing network on Ton, I mean, that's huge. It's absolutely huge. And, there are a lot of agent infrastructures right now in the world that are not on chain. And I think those are going to really lose out. Any AI agents that are able to run on chain, I mean, most agents are choosing to use, Bitcoin, Ton, other cryptocurrencies as the main way that they trade and interact. I think it's nearly 70% are choosing to use cryptocurrencies instead of a digital card number. And I think that number is only going to go up. And so we'll see, autonomous AI agents that are owned by a human or an organization running on decentralized confidential compute, running on Cocoon AI in Telegram. And I think that's going to be one of the fastest growing verticals in the whole global tech world.
I do too. I'm really excited to see what comes out of our next. We have an AI hackathon going on right now, AI agent hackathon, and just seeing the first one that all came out of one of these episodes of Ton Real Talk that whole devil was started. So we had one hackathon, it went splendidly, and the next one just started yesterday. So I can't wait to see what everybody's doing. It's really interesting because oftentimes they create tools that I can use. So I love it. Okay, so for everybody here, I'd love to hear from all of you. What is one thing happening in AI or in confidential compute right now that people should be paying more attention to?
I can take this one. I'll start with this one of you guys. Yeah, I think like, I had my head down so much in November. One of my friends on the internet, Peter Steinbrenner, he was the lead developer of OpenCloud, you may have heard of. And so yeah, OpenCloud, if you don't know, basically it's an agent that can run on on your Mac Mini. And it now have cloud solutions, but it can connect to all of your social media accounts like Telegram, Twitter, Instagram, etc. They have adapters, and then they have like the processes are running 24/7. So you have your agent instance running 24/7. And so people have like really been obsessed with OpenCloud. But they haven't really considered. I don't see anyone talking about confidential compute plus OpenCloud. So I would say like stay tuned for that, and then in the coming months, so we're starting to see confidential agents that interact with all your social media, right? So you can have it do all of your social media management. So I think that is a huge development that we're going to be working hard to deliver for the for the world, right? So yeah.
Great point. Who's next?
Yeah, I'm excited to we're just as running a fast growing company, like typically you'd be like, oh, I need this role, and here's the job description, and here's what we're trying to do, and it's forced. All the agents have just kind of forced me to rethink everything. Even I was having dinner with one of my senior developers last night, and we have one of our products, which is our agentic debug. And there's a lot of like really interesting discussion about like how much power do you give the agents? Like, do we want the agents to be able to like root SSH into our machines and have root access? Do we want them to be able to like reboot the servers? Like, how do you like get trust that the agent's going to do the right thing and not just like, you've seen these like horror stories like Amazon, like, oh, this agent's like delete all the data, like Silicon Valley style, right? So that being said, like there are like real considerations and concerns about how you deploy these in production environments. But a lot of these people that deployed their OpenClaw agents for personal assistance on their MacBook Minis are just using their standard API endpoints. So none of that is your system, the agent thinks it lives on this Mac Mini and has access to your iMessage, but it's like sending your private data through these public endpoints. What are you talking about? It's absolutely insane. So thinking through how these things come together into something like Brittany was mentioning, packaging up into something that everybody's going to want, because when you look at and again, it's not I know there's a lot of worry about all the job loss and everything, but if you're on the other side of it, how do you command and control these agents, learn how to interact with them and use them and use and get more output? I think that's what people are going to be doing, because it's a tremendous opportunity and advantage for companies to deploy these agents. So yeah, we're super excited to start playing with this and run. Again, like we're just like everybody else, learning like how to. The only way you learn how these things work is just by deploying them and figuring it out and testing and having them play around with stuff. And yeah, you may see the Farm GPU Twitter here taken over by that's been neglected because we don't have a marketing person by my NVIDIA Spark here on my desk.
Nice. Very good. Brittany, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think almost every day I'm seeing some horror story posts online of data breaches or something crazy that happens with somebody's agent. As as John Michael rightly said, someone announces that the agent has deleted all of their data. So I personally, I hate to say the same thing, but I do believe that personal agents being deployed where that you have specific permission structures, and the permissions that you give your agents is something that you can be advised on so that you don't give it too much access to things that are very sensitive, and you make sure that it's impossible for it to give third parties access unless you've explicitly consented to that, is going to be a huge product line. And I don't just mean on confidential compute. It will need to be on confidential compute for this to work properly, but for you to have easy to understand permission structures and data tracking and traceability within the user interface, I think will be huge. I mean, over the past 5 or 10 years, especially after my my whole whistleblowing episode, a lot of companies have been forced to make their terms and conditions more obvious, easier to read, first grade reading level instead of pages and pages of legalese, where you can toggle on and off what you want to give a product access to. I think with agents, this is going to be the biggest conversation, like those specific permission structures, because most people and smaller companies, startups, new entrepreneurs are not going to know what to do about that. And to make that easy, to make, privacy not just accessible and affordable, but easy to understand, I think is going to be the UI UX of the next couple of years.
Really well said. Yeah. Okay. So I want to just open it up the floor to each of you to leave us and our audience with any additional thoughts. It could be on AI, on compute, where to follow you, whatever else you would like to leave us with before we wrap up this amazing conversation.
Well, yeah, Brittany, I think it's going to be a fun couple weeks in AI announcement land. We're all gearing up for GTC next week. It's like the Super Bowl for AI here with NVIDIA, and we've got a bunch of fun stuff in store for a bunch of the storage and AI developments that we have, and we have a couple of key technologies that we're going to be unveiling next week, and that's exciting. And yeah, we've this conference computing stack is our next biggest exciting thing to basically bring to the world, and we're can't wait. Brittany and Matthew and team have been amazing partners to go develop this technology, so we're excited. Yeah, I have a Twitter that was popular during the Chia days, but we need to work on the Farm GPU Twitter, as I just mentioned. It needs some love here.
Go give the Farm GPU love, Twitter some love, guys. Follow along.
So let's get you guys a Telegram channel as well.
There we go.
For sure. Go, Matt.
So where I kind of want to leave everyone is just like, I can't believe I didn't remember these, but two major things that I think with AI you're going to see, and why it's confidential compute is like a non-negotiable is, first off, do you want agents in your home, like built into your home, that are not confidential? That, to me, that's like a hard no. I would not want Anthropic or OpenAI listening to everything that's going on in my home 24/7, right? Number two, do you want to be wearing wearables also that have AI agents running on them 24/7? So I just think like those are the two most important things. It's like, we're not going to be able to scale agents that are always on without them being always confidential, right? And people don't even know that this technology is out there, so they're not demanding it. Angela, that's why it's like really important that, we're really grateful that you're giving us coverage, because, people literally don't know that this exists. And now people are going to have the awareness, right? And like, the first step to solving any problem is awareness, right? Just like, are you aware that there's a better path for you? And so, yeah, so we're really grateful to have you on. And those are kind of the things I'm looking forward to, is just bringing, evangelizing confidential compute with these fine people on the call with me. And so, yeah, super grateful to have us on. And yep, look forward to seeing all these folks at GTC. So, and you're welcome to come, Angela, if you'd like to. So take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a great point about most people not being aware of it. You're absolutely right. These tools like GPT and Claude and all these other things are at our fingertips, and there's no warning signs. So you're right. We need to do more of this educational bit. Brittany, over to you.
Well,
No worries there. We lost JM in the meantime.
can you guys still hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can.
That was
You guys can hear me? Okay, I can't hear you, but I'll talk anyway.
Okay.
Okay, great. I something must have just like stolen my input or my output. So I'm glad you guys can still hear. My closing statements are really that I didn't really understand confidential computing until I started going deep down the rabbit hole after Pavel's announcement in October. So it's really Telegram and, legendary founder Pavel Durov announcing that Telegram was going to launch its own native AI network and that it would be, fully privacy centric on confidential compute. And I started to really dig into what does that really mean? Because as I said earlier, I've been so anxious over how do we protect people in the age of AI? How do we actually give people safe AI? And I didn't really understand what Intel TDX and confidential computing truly meant. I understood a bit more on the trusted execution environment because I had been playing around with agents, as a member of ELIZA OS, so early decentralized agents. But I really didn't fully understand what that meant. And Matt and John Michael here both really helped me understand the entire complexity and the technical application and architecture and implementation of it. And that's why I realized that I didn't know about it, because it's so hard. It's so difficult. And bringing that to market through Telegram, one of the world's largest, most used apps, where all of its competitors are widely known for stealing all of your data and targeting you with it, and basically being unsafe platforms for people to use, especially for children to use. It's just a huge opportunity for Telegram and the Telegram ecosystem to be the good actor in this space. The other most used apps in the world are WhatsApp, Instagram, WeChat, TikTok, and then Telegram, right? So one of those is not exactly like the others. And Telegram will be the first app to really bring privacy-centric AI to the world. And that is absolutely huge. And I think people that don't understand that, are about to find that out soon as we scale out Cocoon AI. So over the next couple months and throughout the rest of the year, you'll start to see more AI native features rolling out, and the ability for third parties to start running their AI inference on Cocoon AI, which I think is a huge opportunity for everybody in the world, not just Telegram and the TON ecosystem, but for everybody to have access to safe AI.
Really well said. It's so important that people learn about this through things like this and through all of the work that you three are doing, as opposed to getting burned and having something terrible happen. So really appreciate you being here with me. It's been a fascinating conversation. I love this stuff because it helps me learn too. And I love to learn every day. We talked about confidential compute networks. We talked about decentralized AI infrastructure, the emergence of technologies like Cocoon AI that are pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And honestly, this couldn't be more timely. As I mentioned earlier, TON's AI Agent Hackathon just kicked off yesterday. We're bringing together builders and developers from both the Web 2 and Web 3 AI communities to build this next generation of AI agents on TON. And the goal is to make TON the sediment layer for AI-driven applications where agents can transact, interact economically, and operate inside decentralized environments like Telegram. So if you're working with AI, with LLMs, agent frameworks, this is really a great moment to jump in and start building. Another huge thank you to our guests, Matthew McCarthy from Atlantic AI, JM Hands from Farm GPU, and the lovely Brittany Kaiser from AlphaTon Capital. Thank you guys so much, and thank you to everyone listening and watching to Ton Real Talk. If you enjoyed this episode, please go follow Ton Ecosystem channels, and we will see you next time. Thanks,
so much,
guys.
Angela.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
That was
the
great.
the agents aren't going to use credit cards. They need a wallet.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you,
so
Angela.
much, guys. Take care. Have a good one. I'll see you soon.
Yep. You too. Bye-bye. See you, everyone. Have a good day.